So I'm learning not to water myself down as a creator, or like not to dilute myself, not to put myself in a position where I'm trying to become more digestible for people. And the way that I'm weaning myself into doing that is along the way just making fewer and fewer disclosures about things, because I realize that sometimes you want to give people the benefit of the doubt. And sometimes, no matter how much you give the benefit of the doubt, you'll be misunderstood anyway. And what ends up happening is you're just still misunderstood. And it's like, why did I even do all of that, right? So, this is actually going to be a part of the segment that I want to do on rest. I mentioned the topics that I wanted to cover this month, and one of them is actually resting. And part of resting is not just close the apps, don't post, don't make anything, don't create videos, don't create content. It's also, there's something that I would refer to as like an active rest that happens, and you allow yourself to rest in your, like, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, when you follow these steps. And so, not even really steps, but when you go through this process with this particular mindset. So resting is also not policing yourself, right? And I know that we don't necessarily think about rest in that regard, but it's so important. So you no matter what you post, you're going to have people who don't like it. You're going to have people that disagree with it. You're going to have people that will argue with you. I've said before that typically when I talk about things, I'll make disclosures, and like even with making those disclosures, somebody will still argue with me. Like, I remember doing a video on submission, and I make it very clear that I'm not talking about women who are in dire need of assistance and who are being like abused in their relationships. And I'll say that, and people still will say something about abused people. They will still say, stop telling women to do this. This is how women end up getting abused. And it's like, I don't really know what the solution to that is at this point, but I know that I'm not going to continue to exhaust myself with that, right? And so part of this process of active resting through your content and through your creative process is, one, I've spoken on this before, don't go back and forth with people in the comments in a way that is draining to you. I do still entertain some comments, especially if I think that it's a genuine comment, or if I feel like a person is coming from an angle that's like, okay, I get what you're saying, but let's talk about this, right? And sometimes it ends really well. Like, I remember there's a lady who from time to time she'll comment on my page. She doesn't follow me, but we typically will engage in like a healthy debate, and then she just goes on about her day. Nothing petty, nothing disrespectful. Very respectfully disagree sometimes agree, sometimes offering like another perspective, her 2 cents, whatever. But then there are people who sometimes you can tell that they're just trying to irritate you. They're just trying to stir the pot. They're just trying to be difficult and irritating on purpose, right? And those are the people that you just don't respond to. Why? Because that is going to pull you away from your rest as a creator. It's going to pull you away from the joy of creatorship. And so one of the things that I try to pay attention to is like when I start to feel overwhelmed, or when I start to feel myself saying things like, oh, people are so draining, right? Because it's like, no, people are not draining. It's like a category of people who are anti and have nothing better to do, and they're, for lack of better terms, just trolls, right? Those people are draining. Those people are irritating. Those people make the experience not worthwhile. And so instead of focusing on saying that it's all of the people and making your experience more miserable, we just glaze over those people. And the good news for you as a creator is that most of the time, if you ignore them, they'll go away. Now, you can't make your followers and other people not do this. But the good news is there's a block button. If you ever get tired of seeing somebody, block them. That's what I would do. There was a time when someone responded to something. I responded to them. And then after they responded, I saw where the conversation was going. So I left it alone. I wasn't going to say anything. They hadn't said anything back. Somebody came along and responded to their response, and then it started it up again. So it got to a point where like I got tired of seeing their debate back and forth, so I blocked them, both of them. And it's just like, Like sometimes you feel like, oh, that's so extreme. I don't want to do that. You don't, yeah, but I don't want to keep looking at that. I don't want to keep looking at y'all comments going back and forth. I don't want to hear this silliness. Why y'all got to do this over here? Can't y'all get y'all numbers and text each other offline? What is this? Right? And so that's one of the things that I would definitely say. Like, don't allow yourself to be like a prisoner on your own platform. Don't allow yourself to feel like you have to walk on eggshells. Don't make it seem like you have to break yourself down. Some stuff you might be largely misunderstood. And I've had those moments, and you live past them. People drag you, they stitch you, they repost it, they put silly stuff in the comments. But you also have to realize that some people, depending on what your content is, if your content is something that is like deep, profound, thought-provoking, you're not going to really be understood by everybody. And you have to be okay with that. You just have to be okay with getting your message out there, and whatever comes with that, it's like whatever. But you do have tools at your disposal. You have a block button. You can turn off comments. You can private your account if that's what you want to do. Although I don't recommend that, because that's kind of counterintuitive to getting your message out there, because when you private your account, it's limited to being seen by people who follow you, I think. So I wouldn't do that, but you do have that if you want to. You can delete comments. You can, I just found out about this. This is a really cool feature. You can go, I don't know if the other platforms have this, but TikTok has it. You can go in your settings, and under like where you allow your comments, you can set up filters. So there's certain words that you can filter out. I don't know if you've ever been on TikTok and maybe you were responding to comments and you scroll down all the way and you see that it says so many comments have been hidden. You have to review them. Sometimes it's TikTok that does it on its own, but I've set up my own filter words. So certain words, if you put it in your comment is not even going to be posted to my page unless I filter it out. And I just did that because I just, it's a certain level of respect that I like to maintain. And I know people are going to people. You can never control people's reactions. You can never control what people are going to do online. It's just one of the things that comes with the territory of creating and putting your things out in a public space, right? So don't harp too much on that. So that's one of the things that I wanted to say as far as resting. Do not make yourself small. Don't allow yourself to be overwhelmed by other people's comments. Don't allow people to run you away from your space. And I think that that's something, it's so sad to me because there's so many creators. One of my favorite people on YouTube, and she doesn't even make YouTube videos anymore, I don't think. Her name on there was Lip Gloss, and it was like 12 S's, like lip gloss. And she was like so funny, just herself. I can't even really tell you what her content was like. She was just like for instance, one of her videos was something like how to handle being ugly properly. If you've never heard of her and you heard that come on, tell me that don't sound like it's entertaining. She was so funny. She was so authentic. And I don't know why. I don't know if she got sick of people. I don't know if she got sick of the internet, but she just literally one day just disappeared. And I like to think that she just did it because she wanted to, but I'm like, a part of me also understands that she may have done that simply because people are exhausting. And so I think that that's the worst thing for creators. And I hate that we get to that point where we allow people to dictate our actions so much. And it can be cruel out here in these internet streets, right? But this is why I'm saying, make it a point to rest. So I am going to talk more about resting in other regards, but I do, this video, I specifically want to talk about active resting through your content. So the first thing, maybe I should stop here. No, the first thing is just, not using the tools that are allotted to you on social media to control your setting, right? The second point is what I kind of brought up earlier, where don't make yourself, I just want to elaborate on this. Don't dumb yourself down. Don't put yourself into a box to appease other people. A good example of this would be Christianity. I have said before, not on this platform, I don't think, I've said before that labels can be a very dangerous thing for society. Labels help us to understand people better, sure, get a clearer picture. But labels also allow us to diminish people to the label. So for instance, when people ask me, about like what my beliefs are as far as religious beliefs, it's easier to just say that I am a Christian because that makes sense. Although at the very core of my understanding, I am not a Christian. And that's not to denounce anything, okay? And this isn't even what this video is about, but I'm just going to give you an example of what I mean by not allowing people to put you in a box and not diminishing yourself and not doing whatever. So I believe in the Most High, Yahuwah, and I believe in the Messiah, Yeshua, okay? And I think that I obviously say Jesus. I call on the name of God. I call him Lord of my life, all of these things. In a sense of making sure that when I'm speaking, people know exactly what I'm talking about. I don't waste my time trying to be like, this is what I am. I just say it. And I hope that my words and my actions demonstrate exactly who I am and whose I am and what I believe, more so than any words that ever come out of my mouth, right? Because the problem with sometimes wanting to be obsessed with labeling yourself and wanting to make sure that people get it right is you stress yourself out more, because then people start to try to put you in a box based on what you said. And so just like I can say that, like if somebody really wanted to know and I'd have that conversation with them, I'd be happy to do that. But just from day to day, regular interactions, when I'm having conversations, when I make posts about things, I don't even disclose that. I just say whatever I have to say. And if somebody says something or tries to bait me, like I remember one day, I was on live and this guy out of nowhere, he just came on the live and he was like, do you eat pork? Do you, like, he's like just asking me all these things, and I knew what he was getting at, but I was like, we're just not going there today, because that's not even what this conversation is about. And all you're trying to do is get me to answer a question so that you can bait me into doing something, or so that you can bait me into being put into the box that you have for me. And I promise you, as I'm explaining, this is not deep or super spiritual. This is just me giving you an example. So if you, for instance, we're all people, right? We're all people, and we have varied thoughts. And even the person who you think is your enemy, there's probably one or two things that you have in common with that person. We see that all the time in movies. We see like you end up, the kid ends up getting along with the bully, or like seeing the bully for who they really are. Oh, they're hurt and they're broken too, just like me. Oh my gosh, right? And so we know that we are similar, but we try to point out the differences in other people to ostracize other people and to make ourselves feel better. And so what you do in your content when you try to put yourself in a box, or you try to dumb yourself down, or you try to appease other people by performing a certain way instead of just being exactly who you are and presenting yourself with the information and the knowledge or the whatever it is that you have, you end up stressing yourself out, because you constantly have to police yourself. And this is what I was saying earlier too. You can't be at peace as a creator if you're constantly policing yourself. If you're always thinking about, well, I said this and I don't want anybody to come back and say this, and I don't want, and it's a thing that it very naturally happens, because I told y'all I'm working on moving away from making all the disclosures, because sometimes I'll find myself, like for instance, that book up there, The Boy Crisis, y'all can't see it, it's right there. When I read that book, I always feel the need to say, this is not a debate about moms versus dads. This is not a debate about black boys versus white boys. This is not a debate about, and it's like, how come I can't just open that book and read what's in it and say my thoughts without people getting in a tizzy? Why can't we as a society just listen to understand people? I don't know, and I don't care. But I know that the problem for me is that I don't want to make those disclosures. And the reason that I'm moving away from wanting to do that is because even when I make them, people still react negatively to what I said. So I can say, hey, this is not a mom versus dad. This is not a dads are better. This section is saying these are the disadvantages of dad deprived boys, right? But it doesn't mean that dads are better. It's just painting the picture that dads are present. I shouldn't even have to say that, but you'd be surprised. And so I will say that in the video, and somebody will still say, This is foolishness. Stop telling people that their dad should be involved. It needs to be a healthy father. Why did that comment need to why did that comment need to be made, right? And so I'm trying to paint this picture to help you understand that as you grow and as you start to create more content, you don't have to like stress yourself out about the isms, because they're going to come. People are going to be dense, because that is what people do. People are going to miss the point of your videos sometimes. People are going to comment about things that you never said. People are going to accuse you of things that you never said. You're going to say one day that your favorite color is purple, and somebody's going to quote you as hating pink and being evil and a pink hater. Like, it's just what happens. And so part of the resting process is, one, understanding that those things are going to happen, but two, not playing into it. And you don't play into it by, like I said earlier, you don't want to dumb yourself down. You don't want to make yourself small. And you just don't want to play into the Olympics that people try to drag you into. Use the tools of our time. Block people. Get them out of there, friend. Get them out of there. Obviously, resting also does involve putting the camera down, getting off the apps every now and then. I've mentioned to y'all that something that I've started actively doing is like moving, something I should have been doing, to be honest with you, moving away from even like recording and engaging with the internet on the Sabbath, because that's not where my heart and my mind should be anyway. And how do I expect to be restored if I don't fully step away from those things? But even if you don't celebrate that, even if you don't celebrate the Sabbath, even if you don't take time away in that regard, I think that you should make it a habit to step away. And one of the things I do too is I post and goes. I very rarely stay on the app and start talking to people. I comment and respond to comments when I come back, or whenever I want to check in with the people that I'm following, or if I want to see some new stuff. Like, I have times where I go and do that, but I don't, just because I post something doesn't mean I'm going to hang out on the app anymore. I used to do that, but I don't do that anymore. I don't feel like I need to. And I like to just give the post time to get out there, reach people, let people say whatever they need to say. That way, when I do come back, I can comment on a few different things at one time. But it also just, it eases your anxiety, and it helps you to not think about it so much. Because if you post your video and then you hang around and then you start thinking about it too much, you're going to feel like you need to take it down. It's this, it's that. Nobody's watching it. Just post your video and get off the app. Rest. Go do something else with your time. And so there is another segment of this that I want to talk about, but I think I'm going to stop this one here, because I think these are less obvious ways that we think about resting as like content creators, as influencers, as online people, whatever, business owners. We don't think about it in that regard. And I think that that's so important, because there needs to be some element of detachment that occurs as we navigate through these spaces as content creators, because the internet can be a brutal place full of people who will not have the guts to do some of the stuff that they do online, which is why you shouldn't take it personally, because most of these people are just internet trolls and bullies trying to get a reaction out of people because they're bored and they don't have anything else better to do. So don't put your heart on your sleeve when you're on the internet. And I think that's it for this video. I will see you tomorrow.